Hey, Low Post listeners, this week on the podcast, we have ESPN's Kevin Arnovitz to discuss his mammoth Sacramento Kings feature, and Brian Windhorst jumps on to talk about the Cavs and angry LeBron James.
What's up, First Take fam? Thank you so much for being with us on a Monday. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. We are excited. It is Super Bowl week. We're going to be in Houston for Super Bowl 51. Catch us live downtown. We'll be at Lucky's Pub this Wednesday, February 1st through Friday, February 3rd. We're going to have a ton of special guests and giveaways. Doors open at 7:30 a.m. So be there early and pack the house. But right now, so much to get into. Who are the guys more worried about, the Falcons or the Patriots? Tom Brady says he isn't using Deflategate as motivation. Are you buying it? And Steve Kerr doesn't hold back when it comes to Donald Trump's executive order on immigration. And you don't want to miss what Max Kellerman has to say about this subject. Let's get it started. I don't know about you, but I'm getting kind of hyped right now. It is Super Bowl week, folks. Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons arrived in Houston yesterday, while Tom Brady and the Patriots will be arriving this afternoon. New England appears to be relatively healthy. On the Atlanta side, Julio Jones continues to battle turf toe. And we are taking the show on the road. We'll be live from Houston Wednesday.
Give it up! Give it up! Give it up! I can give it up.
Yes,
We got to.
yes.
For once, we're all here healthy. I mean, can you believe it? We're all here healthy. There's no bug, no flu, no.
Playing at 100%, full health, no issues, no travel issues. We're good. We're good. I just want to let everybody know we're going to be at Lucky's Pub downtown on St. Emmanuel Street, and we hope to see you down there.
I have to say something. Watch the fight Saturday night. My man Max Kellerman.
He's the real deal.
You're the real deal, baby.
Thank you, brother.
You're very good, you. You are very good, you.
It's easy when you get a couple of great fights.
There you go. There you go.
That was fun.
Great
Jonathan,
job.
good
Great
to have
job.
you with us.
Thank
you.
Stephen, I want to start with you here. Who are you more concerned about right now, the Patriots or the Falcons?
Believe it or not, it's the Patriots. I look at Atlanta, certainly their youth, and that's something that Max can touch on or what have you. Here's why I'm concerned. I think you genuinely look at the Atlanta Falcons and you see a more talented team.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm looking at that Tom Brady, and as great as I know he is, I'm like, he's 39. I'm thinking about Rob Gronkowski. Oh, he's hurt. Okay. I'm thinking about Martellus Bennett. Well, he's never been here before. He's playing with Jay Cutler last year, for crying out loud. I mean, this is a whole new stratosphere for him. I'm thinking about guys like that, and I'm thinking about a defense that doesn't break but bends quite a bit where you can get at them. It's one of those Super Bowl contests where I look at the New England Patriots and I'm saying to myself, they had better be ready. Atlanta's coming. And it's not because of T.I., whatever nickname he wants to use. It's not because of anybody else. It's because I'm looking at the Atlanta Falcons and I'm saying these brothers are studs, and New England has to bring their A game in order to bring home a Super Bowl championship.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. The Falcons are probably the more talented team, but Bill Belichick has made a career out of making the more talented team at the end of the game go, what just happened? I mean, it's one of the reasons when Spygate broke, or even Deflategate, it made a lot of sense to people, because Marcellus Wiley, my former broadcast partner here at ESPN, talked about this.
Saw him the other day. It was good seeing our brother
in LA.
in LA live.
Marcellus, the mayor of Los Angeles.
He's the man.
So, but he used to talk about at the end of the game, he'd be like, what just happened? I know we're better than them. I know we're more talented than them, but somehow they beat us. And so it's Belichick and the scheming and all that. But in this case, it's more than that. The Falcons are relatively inexperienced. And I just think to last year's Super Bowl, the Broncos had been there, the Panthers had not, and it seemed to me obvious from the beginning of the game that experience was playing a role, that guys were tight, that they didn't know exactly what they were doing. Doesn't mean that an inexperienced team can't win the Super Bowl. They can. There's a first, sometimes guys come in, they've never done it before, and then they kickstart a dynasty. It has to start at some point. But it can play a factor, and that can particularly be exposed when playing a very experienced team, and that's what's about to happen.
In the beginning, I was going to go with you, Stephen, and you're absolutely right. The thing that I worry about the New England Patriots is them going in complacent. With Tom Brady, we have the best quarterback to ever play the game. We'll be fine. Julian Edelman's been there before, but we can't say that about a lot of guys on that particular football team. Martellus Bennett's never been there in that position, especially this offensive line, this defense. I lean more to New England, but I have to go with Atlanta. And the reason is because of the same things that we went through in 2004. A new team coming in. We finally got over that hump. Now it was it was kind of live or die for us at the quarterback position.
When you say Atlanta, you have to go with Atlanta, meaning you're more concerned.
I'm more concerned about Atlanta because, you know, the thing for Atlanta, we talk so much about the firepower with Julio Jones and the running game and the number 2 and 3 receivers in Gabriel and Sanu, but we never really talked about their defense. This is a defense and their defensive back, their quarterback, who's been penalized more than any defensive back in the game. This is a guy who's probably going to have to guard.
Who's talking about here?
Alfred.
Okay.
Alfred on the outside. They don't have tzwFyI. You know, so now you got a secondary who'll be playing against pretty much probably number 2 receivers all across the board. You know, Julian Edelman's really not a number 1, but he's a number 1 in that offense. You have Chris Hogan, you have Mitchell, you have Martellus Bennett, who's not Gronkowski. So now you have pretty much a group of guys that you're competing against. And can they get the pass rush? Can Beasley get to Tom Brady quick enough before he gets the ball out? What will you get from Dwight Freeney? You know, and that's the question that the spin move, but he's also in his 30s.
That usually works.
It does, but he's also getting late in his 30s.
It's one game.
Even with one game, though, even with one game, you're asking a lot from an older guy to come in and be that guy. He's not Haley coming off the end from the Dallas Cowboys. You know, Dwight Freeney's a great piece to the puzzle, but do they have enough in their front 7? They're athletic. They run sideline to sideline, which I think the matchup with their linebackers and Deion Lewis and the rest of their running backs, I think, works in the favor of Atlanta. But can they get pass rush enough that we've seen the Houston Texans be successful with? And can they do that in the Super Bowl?
Well, here's my deal. If Jadeveon Clowney, just his 2nd or 3rd year in the league, can get a pass rush, and I like Jadeveon Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney also is bigger than Beasley.
He's bigger, but Vic Beasley, 15.5 sacks. That's not an accident. Number 1 in the league. That's not an accident. We got to give respect where respect is due. We got to understand the attention that he's going to draw. We got to understand how that's going to free up Clayton, how that's going to free up Dwight Freeney and others, and see where that goes from there. I also would say this to you. To buffer your argument is the fact that because New England has a bunch of number 2s, Atlanta may not know who to key on from moment to moment, whether it's Amendola, Edelman, or a guy, you know, it could be somebody Hogan or anybody else. But here's why I say I'm more concerned about New England. It's not because of complacency. You have to remember that when the Eagles, your Eagles, played against the New England Patriots, that was in the throes of them. I mean, people talk about them being a dynasty. They then went 10 years without winning the Super Bowl. 2 times they lost to the New York Giants. Why did they lose to the New York Giants? Because the New York Giants had a front 4 that could go at them, you didn't have to blitz them from all over the place to sit up there and get at Tom Brady. Can Atlanta do that? I know it seems like a tall task, but I can't ignore the Beasley factor.
Know what the problem is? Even if they do that, because the Texans had great success doing that.
Right.
Brady still hung 30+ on them. Now, I know the Falcons.
Well, I mean, they gave him a couple gifts with Osweiler
no doubt about it. And also the Falcons are going to score a lot, too. Falcons are going to score a lot, too.
True.
But still, it's 30+. Now, you can sit there and say, yeah, but that's like special teams, returning a kick for a touchdown, stuff like that. But that's the point about the Patriots. Even when one phase of your game is extremely successful, the offense still is not, ain't bad. And meantime, they'll win in the other 2 phases of the game. Yeah. They are just so well
offensively,
coached.
They're very similar when you look at the Texans and also the Atlanta Falcons, although there's more explosive plays because of the quarterback. But DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, there's Sanu and Fuller and those guys are still the same. But Matt Ryan has to protect the football all throughout this game.
And speaking of Atlanta, only 4 of the Atlanta Falcons have been to a Super Bowl before, but they do have the NFL's #1 scoring offense and the potential MVP in Matt Ryan. And one of their many star weapons is feeling pretty confident. Devontae Freeman saying this: "We can do whatever we want. Pick your poison. We've had the game plan. The game plan doesn't change." Max, who should the Patriots be focusing on defensively?
Well, the Patriots generally should focus defensively on taking away as much as possible that 5-out offense that the Falcons run. Because the whole thing is they have receivers who can beat their man. They will win those matchups. So you got to load up the back, load up the outside, and force them to beat you with the running game, which I think has 2 advantages if you're New England. One, as good as the running game is, what makes them special, what makes Matt Ryan special, is the passing game to those receivers. 2, kind of hard to score a ton of points running the ball compared to throwing the ball, which is what the Falcons do. So you do have to pick your poison. Devontae Freeman is right with this team. You have to, because they have many ways they can score. And I think what Belichick will pick is the running game. Go ahead, beat us. Let's see if you can beat us with the run. And also, by the way, New England has a stout run defense anyway. They're good defending against the run
Number
anyway.
3 overall. But here's my thing. I think the key is Tevin Coleman. I know Devontae Freeman can run the football. I know the combination of them coming out of the backfield is a lethal threat. I like this Tevin Coleman catching passes out of the backfield. I think that's going to be a big, big deal with New England. Now, obviously, you got Julio Jones, and Mohamed Sanu is obviously a viable secondary option. Good pickup from Cincinnati. We get all of that. And Taylor Gabriel is no joke. We understand that, too, because he's a speed. He can make things happen. He can be electrifying. But I think if you're Bill Belichick, you can predict those kind of things. Right. What happens is that when you just throwing swing passes out of the backfield and dudes are making plays, without running the football. Those guys, when you look at New England, even though their strength is to some degree in that front seven, even though McCourty and Chung and those boys can play, the fact of the matter is that they're older now. Right. The age situation that you talked about. And when you got young studs that can make things happen with their feet, where it ain't about this, but it's about your physical ability, that's where Coleman and Freeman come into play, particularly Coleman, who I like catching passes out of that backfield. I think he could be a key component. If Atlanta wins this game, I think that he will have a lot to do with it.
I think with Devontae Freeman, and people are jumping on his comments, I think they were the right comments. Those are things that we would say. All right. Now, as the media is concerned, they think that it's probably a little bit cocky coming from Devontae Freeman, when I don't think so. He's absolutely right. He understands that Bill Belichick is going to have to pick his poison. Now, who is he going to pick? I'm with you. He's going to pick the running back. Let's go back to the Super Bowl, I believe, in New Orleans, where the New England Patriots played against the St. Louis Rams. They took Marshall Faulk out of that offense. Defensive ends coming up the field, you bang Marshall Faulk before he comes out. So he's not a valuable asset in the passing game. Now, in the running game, you clog up the hose force from the run outside. That's something that Atlanta Falcons are very successful with. They like to hit the A and the B gap inside, and if they run outside with a tall sweep, then now that's the play call. So if they're running inside, clog up the hose, may force them to run outside. Now, when I look at this Bill Belichick defense, and we can go back to the Pittsburgh game, they tried to take Le'Veon Bell out of the game, but Le'Veon Bell took himself out of the game because of injury. It wasn't about Antonio Brown. It's not going to be about Julio Jones. I expect them to double team guys like Sanu, and then bring a safety.
You expect them to double team Sanu?
Because this is the reason. You double team Sanu, you have Malcolm Butler versus Julio Jones. But you also put a linebacker underneath him. You put Malcolm Butler deep. Malcolm's not going to play man-to-man versus Julio Jones. I would not do that, nor would Bill Belichick do that. Because remember, going back to 2004, even though T.O. was on 1.5 legs, they still had guys like Asante Samuels out there. T.O. came out of that game with over 100-something yards receiving.
122.
And that's the thing. They tried to take Westbrook out of the offense. And so I expect Bill Belichick to have that same mentality. Take the running backs out. Let Julio Jones have his game where it might be a 100-yard game, 105. But don't force anybody else.
I'm interrupting because of a question. Yeah, you had other receivers.
Right.
Pinksters of the world, if I remember correctly.
Who had a big first half.
That's right. But at the same time, it was T.O., and then there was a significant drop-off in terms of whatever you had to go with. So Westbrook was obviously your secondary option, but at times throughout that season was a primary option, covering the team. I mean, Westbrook was a bad boy. Right. I'm saying to you, when I look at Julio Jones, everybody else is a Westbrook in terms of that secondary option. You had T.O. and then Westbrook. On this Atlanta squad, This Julio. But then all of those other guys that we mentioned, Gabriel and Sanu and Coleman and Freeman, they're on the same level. Well, how you gonna pin that down if you're Bill Belichick?
The whole thing about it is, and even Pittsburgh tried to do it. Wherever Rowe is lined up, their third corner, you go after him because he's not a good cover corner. He's not a good cover corner, and he's a little small. He's not quick either. Right. So his hips aren't as loose as you see of a Malcolm Butler or even a Ryan. So you attack him, and if your running game is on point, all of a sudden you start to see the halfback screen be a major factor. You start to see the tight end in the check down, which we had L.J. Smith a couple times, because their linebackers for New England aren't cover linebackers. Right. They're run stoppers. They can't run sideline to sideline very well like we see from Atlanta. So the way that you attack them is in the middle part of their football field and force them to run outside the hash.
when I think about what does Belichick want to do, I'm not just about scheme. I'm talking about where are you going to devote extra resources. You only got so many guys on the field on defense. Where do your extra resources go? To me, they don't need to devote extra resources to the run stopping because they do that well.
They're pretty stout.
They're stout there. And if go ahead, Atlanta, beat them running the ball. That's not.
But Atlanta's not going to try to run, Max. I don't think they're going to try to run.
They're a balanced offense. They are really a balanced offense.
They'll run.
They will.
If you send extra guys outside and back, right, and deep, then you're daring them to run, and they have running backs.
Well,
they will.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying to you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to word it that way. I'm not saying they won't run per se or they can't run. I'm saying to you that going up against Bill Belichick, knowing what we all know, they know it too. Quinn knows it. And so as a result, you're going to go like this. Why? You're going to do what Donovan McNabb did. Why do I need to constantly run the football when I could just dip and dunk it to one of these guys? You see what I'm saying? It's like that forces your linebackers ultimately to become cover guys. Now it's not like you're running the football, but at the same time, it's not like you even passing it, but you're making them get away from
using your running backs without handing it off. You're using your running backs without handing it off. You're making them evade from their comfort zone, and that's how I believe you can attack New England's linebackers.
You're talking about ways of attacking it, but this is now Bill Belichick attacking what you're trying to attack by banging them before they get out of the backfield. Now, for defensive ends, Chris Long and those guys coming upfield, they see the running back getting wide, you bang them. Now that takes them out of the offense and the value of a receiver, and you can focus on the guys deeper. So when you have Sanu running 12-yard routes, you have Julio Jones running that 25-yard route, there's a safety over the top. There's a linebacker underneath Sanu. The back hasn't gotten out yet because he's been banged in the back of the backfield. That's what makes them successful. But if he has a free release, meaning Coleman and also Freeman, if they have free release and they catch the football, linebackers have to make that tackle.
I guess what I'm saying is whether it's Gabriel or Sanu, instead of them running 12-yard routes, you have them run a bit deeper. That way guys can't cheat by coming up.
There you go.
That's how you're going to have to do it. Make them all go a little deeper.
They've been a special offense all year. They're an historically great offense. They're among the all-time greats. What makes them special? Matt Ryan recognizing guys who are open and getting them that ball, the receivers, right? That's what really makes them special. And I think that's what Belichick has to take away, because the Falcons are going to want to dance with who brung them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I just don't want to hear anybody comparing them to Houston in this regard. Osweiler is not Matt Ryan.
Well, it stops right there. It stops right there. It stops right there. It stops right there.
So, we all had to live through Deflategate for 544 days to be exact, but for Tom Brady Sr., it was on a whole other level. Of course, the three-time Super Bowl MVP's father was privy to much more information, intimate details, and it's also his name that was being tarnished. Here's what he had to say to K-Ron 4 News. What the league did to him, what Roger Goodell constantly lied about, is beyond reprehensible as far as I'm concerned. He went on a witch hunt and gone way over his head and had to lie his way out numerous ways. The reality is Tommy never got suspended for deflating footballs. He got suspended because the court said that Roger Goodell could do anything he wanted to do to any player for any reason whatsoever. That's what happened. The NFL admitted they had no evidence on him. Somebody that has Roger Goodell's ethics doesn't belong on any stage that Tom Brady is on. Well then, Max.
Yeah.
Is he justified?
Well, first of all, I have 3 daughters.
Okay.
Any parent is justified in defending their kid like to the death, right? That's what parents do. If your kid is under fire, you're going to defend them. You're going to go at whoever's, especially if there's reason to doubt, right? Even if there isn't, you might still defend your kid. Oftentimes, most would, and we could argue about that. But especially when there's good arguments on both sides, you're going to go at whoever's attacking your kid. And secondly, what is Tom Brady's dad doing here? He's essentially accusing Roger Goodell of wielding too much power, of seeking autocratic rule, of the problem. He's really saying, here's the problem with authoritarianism, is that it comes down to, if someone has a personal beef or a preference, they can impose their will, and it's not necessarily just, and it's not even necessarily in the best interest of what's going on. It has to do with their own peccadillos and their own preferences. He's making a case against authoritarianism, which at this moment in time in this country is actually very resonant.
Well, you can relax because you'll have plenty of time.
I was about to say.
I knew that was
We're not going to go into that mode right now.
Here's the only difference. Here's the only
That's for the 11 o'clock hour. 11 o'clock, it's your time.
The only difference is Roger Goodell would have to respect a court order. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Here's the deal. In all seriousness, I can respect where Tom Brady Sr. is coming from. That's his son. And any son would want a father like that to come to his defense. So I applaud the man. But that doesn't make him accurate. The latter part of his quote is what this speaks to. And at the end of the day, you're not bigger than the shield. And so, yes, it's true. Tom Brady didn't get suspended because of deflated footballs. Tom Brady got suspended because Tom Brady tried to challenge the authority of the commissioner, and the commissioner flexed his muscle on behalf of the 32 owners, one of whom is Tom Brady's boss, basically saying, excuse me, no matter how large you are, no matter how epic you are, you ain't bigger than the shield. It was here before you arrived, and it will be here when you are gone. And I think that I say that because it's imperative that everyone out there understands none of us are stupid enough to impugn the greatness and the integrity of Tom Brady in that regard. We know what Tom Brady means to football, what he's represented. He's a champion 4 times over. But it doesn't negate the fact you could have handled things differently. It doesn't negate the fact that had this been Donovan McNabb or a bevy of other quarterbacks, we would have been speaking about their arrogance. We would have been speaking about who the hell do you think you are because you ain't bigger than the shield. Tom, I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to put it in plain English for everybody. This is America. We live in a country that's 66% white. It don't get much larger in sports than Tom Brady. He's white. He looks great. His wife is off the charts. I still can't get over the runway walk to open the Olympics.
It's something special.
It's something special.
Oh, over a mile and a half?
Oh, look, she could have walked. She could still be walking. I'd still be watching. That's how sensational she was that day. She was phenomenal. I mean, this dude, you're rich, you're famous, you got a supermodel wife, you've got a pristine image, all of these other things.
4 Super Bowls.
All you had to do was sit up there and pick up the phone. Roger, can we talk? No, you refused to do that. You wanted to fall along the Belichick lines with the Patriot way. You wanted to sit up there and all of a sudden your text messages were erased or your cell phone got lost or destroyed or broken. I broke that story. You got all of that going on. You could have handled it differently.
There's an investigation. Hold on a second.
And even though his father didn't say that, I wish that his father would have chilled with the acerbic language towards Goodell, because in the end, as a dad, you might have sat up there and advised your son, look, there's times when we have to bite the bullet. It's sickening, but this is one of those times.
I agree with him defending his son. I mean, for all of us who have kids, yes, we have to step in front of the bullet and be able to take it for him and be able to explain why. Now, in this situation, we fail to realize that the players have voted on Roger Goodell to have this authority.
Yeah.
You know, so don't get upset now when all of this goes on. A lot of this is carried over because Tom has taken it too far. Now, remember, it was at first it started out as a 4-game suspension and would have been dropped or reduced to 2. Mm-hmm. And as a quarterback in this league, and we've all signed a petition since 2005, I believe, or even before, we all signed a petition that we can have the footballs earlier to be able to cater it to how we like it for game time and then be able to play with the footballs we've practiced with. That was something as quarterbacks in the NFL, all across the NFL, that we signed, including Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Now, did he have anything to do with deflating the footballs? No, he probably didn't take the air out of the footballs, but he told the equipment staff how he wanted the footballs. Now, did he know where the PSIs were? No, he probably didn't. But when he got up there in the press conference and said, I like my footballs etched. Now, first of all, as you ask any other quarterbacks, they wouldn't be able to explain where they like them at. They'll just say, I like the way they feel here. My footballs are always ready and prepared for Sunday because I practiced them and I put them where I like them. Now, that was one instance. Now, for his dad to be able to come out at this time, going to the Super Bowl, it's all bad timing. We talked about distractions leading into the Super Bowl. This is a major distraction for the football team.
Unless Tom Brady goes out and balls and they win.
Right. This will be a distraction that we will talk about if they don't win this Super Bowl.
But is it a distracting? He's just supporting his son. So I feel, if that was me, I'd feel more empowered to get out there in my field, like my family's behind me.
Well, that's great. But then the rest of the team has to answer all this, because who knows if the dad has hung out with any of the players or the players have been over to the house. Now Julian Edelman has to talk about it. Now Bill Belichick probably is going to be asked about it. Bob Kraft is going to be asked about it. This is one that's going to be disturbing to a lot of different people because of what his dad may have mentioned.
Not just that, the timing in regards to that. You could have said it after media day, because the son has to go up there before the meeting.
Right.
In preparation to the Super Bowl. And now, even though he was going to be asked about it before, he's going to be bombarded with it ad nauseum, because now, what are you going to sit up there and say? No comment to what your
He already
daddy
addressed
said?
it on WEEI.
Well, he talked about, he told his dad.
WEEI.
Gag order.
Hold on, wait.
I know where you're going.
WEEI is a great radio station.
But
They ain't the media during Super Bowl week. You've been there during Super Bowl week?
I have.
During Super Bowl
It is
week.
disturbing.
It is. I've been to several of them, and I'm telling you
I
right
just
now,
don't see this
during the
distracting Tom
doing the
Brady.
show on Radio Row, let me tell you something right now. Super Bowl week, that media, it's on another level. And for your son to have to be subjected to this stuff because of what you said,
You're looking for stories, and you just gave
you just gave it to
and I
him.
guarantee a lot of media outlets in Media Row will be trying to get Tom Brady.
If he got to the Super Bowl through Deflategate, I think he'll be okay this week having to deal with his dad's comments. Just my 2 cents. Tom Brady said that he isn't looking forward to a win against the Falcons as a form of retribution for the Deflategate penalties. Here's what he said about it to Chris Berman last night.
You know, that would mean we won the game. So that's all I really care about, is us, finishing this thing off. And, I think we've had a great season. The team's really played well, like I said, under a lot of different circumstances. And, hopefully we're in that position. It's going to take a big effort. It's going to take, a great football game by our team. So, I'm excited for our opportunity. Hopefully we can make the most of it.
Stephen A., did you hear that? Deflategate is not a motivating factor. Are you buying it?
Yes, today, but not Sunday if you win and you see Roger Goodell right there. That's an entirely different emotion. The work is done, and now it's at your disposal. It's at your discretion what should or can be done, or whatever the case may be. Because if you're on that stage and you are a Super Bowl champion, after all you endured, you finally got the job done. And then the man that you believe has sullied your name and your reputation, has impugned your character and your integrity, is standing before you having to present the trophy. That's a different emotion altogether. It's like you might not do anything, but you're going to at least go, me the damn trophy. You're going to at least do something like that. You understand what I'm saying? It's going to be some kind of look or whatever the case may be. And if you're smiling like Tom Brady is with that George Foreman smile right there, it's going to be like, how you like me now? That kind of smile. But it's going to be something.
That's the point. It's not like, is it a factor? Okay, so this would make this Super Bowl win, if he gets it, sweeter than it would have otherwise been. Even sweeter. As sweet as a Super Bowl win must be, even your 5th one. It's got to be really sweet. This would be even better. And if it was someone else, maybe I would say, hey, a lot of people think they're as prepared as they can be. But a little extra motivation that can tap adrenaline that you don't always have access to, not even in extreme circumstances, it can tap a little bit more. Maybe it makes you a little better. But in Tom Brady's case, I've always had the sense that he is as prepared as is humanly possible for every moment in a game like this. I don't think because we're talking about Tom Brady, this can possibly elevate his play above where it would be, because he's always ready to play at the highest possible level. But as Stephen A. said, afterwards, if he wins, then all bets are off. Then that moment becomes extra special to him. I just don't think that carrot is enough to make him even better, because I don't think he can be even better. I think he's tapped out his potential.
Well, I think in the beginning of his season and now toward the end of the season, it is motivational factors. Motivational factor to get back out on the football field was to prove Roger Goodell wrong. Not only to prove Roger Goodell wrong, but he's seen the way the team played without him. So it was also to go against what Max talked about early on, to prove that he can play at 39 years of age and play at that elite level. As the season continued on, I don't think it was a motivating factor because how well they were playing and what they were able to do, minus Gronkowski, minus Edelman, and minus everyone that was banged up and hurt. Now everyone is healthy. But I think leading up until this week, it's a topic of conversation in his house. His wife is bringing it up. His dad, not only is he bringing it up in the media, but he's talking about it to his son all last week, I guarantee. And so when you continue to talk about it, now it begins to stick into your mind. Every time you step out on that football field is to get that trophy and to look at Roger Goodell, like Stephen A. talked about, and to basically tell him, this is your fault. You're the reason we won the Super Bowl. Now give me this damn trophy and go home. So now going into this game, it's more of a factor than we look at. Because think of it as a player in this game, in the NBA, in baseball. this is a way to prove everybody wrong, including the commissioner, that he was wrong for accusing you of doing something you say that you were not responsible for. And not only that, to win the Super Bowl. And if he wins the Super Bowl, he's going to get MVP. They're going to get MVP so that he can be on stage for this particular reason. The NFL will set it up this way because it's not only good for a guy like Tom Brady. This is great for Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
Roger Goodell having all the power to make all the decisions and still stand in front of you after I suspend you for a game.
That's true, but I will,
that's true, but I will tell you, according to numerous sources that I have, Roger Goodell, no one was more happier than Roger Goodell when the New England Patriots lost in the AFC Championship game last year.
He can go hang out in New England again.
He did not want to be on that stage with the New England Patriots.
Question.
And to some degree, yes, it's a year later. And the momentum has dissipated to some degree. But remember, this season, Tom Brady was suspended for the first 4 games. So I still think that Roger Goodell has a strong level of discomfort when he's talking about being at that Super Bowl and having to be on stage with the New England Patriots, and in particular Tom Brady. I definitely believe he's uncomfortable with that.
Everything we're talking about, what you were talking about, is going by the assumption that he didn't do it. What if he did it? We don't know. And the Wells report said it's more likely than not, and that's been disputed, but whatever. It's unclear if he did it or not. What if he did it? Does that change the motivation for Tom Brady?
Well, the whole thing about it, if he did it or if he didn't, he still paid the consequences for it. So, I mean,
so
if we
mad about that?
Yeah, I mean.
But he can't be as righteously indignant as if he really didn't
do it. It really don't
matter.
matter. I mean, it's like a kid. If you steal candy in a candy store and you're with the guy who stole it, both of you in trouble. So you both serve the consequences for it. So it's just like you took it anyway. So for Tom Brady, if he pulled the air out or he told the equipment staff to take more air out, you're guilty for it because he should have just came out in the press conference and said,
I agree.
Look, I had them take the air out of the balls the way I like it. Did I know where it was? No, I didn't. I'm not responsible for that. That's them.
He could have handled it much better, and he deserves blame and culpability for that regard, how he handled the whole matter. But to answer your question directly, Max, what may also play a role in his elevated level of ire is if he believes he was targeted and other people got off, like a Bill Belichick. Because if it's true that absolutely positively nothing happens without Bill Belichick's knowledge, and Tom Brady sitting there taking all of these hits while Bill Belichick, they miss a game.
Oh, nobody stepped up and took bullets for him.
Nobody stepped up and took anything from him. That might tick him off. And keep in mind, we got to remember this too. If you look at New England's history, when those footballs supposedly were being deflated, they never fumbled the ball.
Not at Foxborough.
I mean, and now this year, they were one of the league leaders in fumbles. I mean, so we understand the benefits.
Wait a minute. The equipment staff members got their job back, too.
Stephen A, it's deeper than that because their fumble rate at Foxborough after Spygate went way down until Deflategate.
I'm just saying, it is true. I mean, Max is right. It's true.
That's the numbers. Those are the numbers.
And what I really want to know is, was it you or your friend who was stealing the candy?
That wasn't me.
It wasn't you?
It wasn't me.
But you had to suffer the consequences.
It wasn't me.
Fighting until the death like someone else.
I stole some candy when I was 7 years old, got busted, and never stole another thing the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Got busted at 8.
Paid the price, did you?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
got home and...
Man, told my mama.
Got driven back.
She got on that butt.
No. She said, your father will deal with you. My father said, had the belt. Come on here.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm telling you right now, my father be in jail if
got
in today's society. In today's society, my father would have been pleased.
Dad would have gave you the phone. Go ahead, call him.
Call him.
Go ahead, call
him. No, I never.
He'd be in jail and you'd still be stealing candy.
Now it all makes sense.
I probably would.
So good to have you with us. We'll see you in Houston. Travel safe. Looking forward to that.
On the latest Northern from Adam podcast, I'll talk with my close friend and colleague, Chris Mortensen, about his battle with stage 4 throat cancer, what he still wants to accomplish in life, and whether or not I'll get to work with him at Super Bowl 51.
How about those Warriors? They blew out the Clippers by 46 points at Oracle on Saturday. I think this used to be considered a rivalry. Not so much anymore. Chef Curry with the shot had an incredible half-court buzzer beater in 43 points in the game. Here he is after the dub.
We're locked in on the defensive end early and often, and that's kind of the telltale sign of how focused we are and how much we want to win the game if we can show up on the defensive end because we can turn it into easy offense.
Max, what does the Warriors blowout of the Clippers specifically tell you?
Well, it speaks to how great the Warriors are now that they're starting to fire on all cylinders and having integrated Kevin Durant increasingly into the offense and into the team, and the defense even that he brings, as Stephen A. has pointed out. It also points out how great Chris Paul is. In his absence, they're simply not the same. And the inadequacy of Austin Rivers as a starting point guard in the NBA, or maybe even as a player in the NBA. And Stephen A., I have a question for you about this, because I found myself wondering if Austin Rivers, who's never been a good pick-and-roll point guard, to say the least, which is you kind of need that in today's NBA spread offenses and all that. But I imagine, look, Austin Rivers is woefully inadequate to start at the point. He get blown out by 40. He is the coach's son. He's also the GM's son. I imagine that part of getting blown out by 40 is not only the fact that the point guard's not good enough, but the fact that the whole team knows that point guard's not good enough, and he's the head coach and GM's son. That can't be good for the locker room. But that's just my theory. You actually know things, so I'd like to ask you what's going on.
When Doc Rivers first brought Austin Rivers on, there was some trepidation on the part of many. You bring in your son, they didn't like it. Doc Rivers and I spoke directly. He said, I don't give a you know what. You know, he was like, I don't care. Austin Rivers came on the team and immediately showcased his defensive prowess. What he can do on the defensive end of the floor earned his stripes. So he is far more respected now than when he first arrived on the team. But this entire franchise knows everything starts and ends with Chris Paul. He's that vital. He's that pivotal. When he is not on the floor for the Los Angeles Clippers, they are a shell of who they are. He runs the show. He directs traffic. He orchestrates things. He knows everybody's job description. He is a true extension of the coach on the court, not just in performance, but in attitude, because Doc Rivers, you know, he bows to no one. His attitude is there's a way to beat everybody. We just have to find it. And Chris Paul is an extension of that. Without that, they lose that identity, Max, and they're just a shell.
But I've seen like Blake Griffin essentially run not exactly a point forward, but run the offense at times with Chris Paul out of the lineup, and seems to do pretty well. To me, I hear that, of course. Listen, any backup point guard is going to fall way off from Chris Paul, who plays a practically perfect point guard. He's like the perfect point guard. But in particular, Austin Rivers, Stephen A., there's no one on the team, especially with the contract he just got in the offseason, that his dad gave him. Let's face it, when he was the top recruit out of high school, but by the time the Clippers signed him to the first deal, he was like a D-League caliber player. Yeah, but again, a bubble kind of NBA player.
We're looking at one side of the ball instead of both sides. Defensively, he belongs in the NBA. Offensively, there have been times where he looked like he's improved with his shot. He can make some things happen. The problem is he's playing with the Clippers, where Chris Paul is. And so when you go from Chris Paul to Austin Rivers, there's an extreme drop-off. If he were playing in most other places, it ain't that big of a drop-off.
Right.
So it's not that flagrant. It's
but
not
what I'm asking, what you're saying is clearly true. What I'm asking is there resentment nevertheless that he is the coach and GM's son? That one of the reasons they don't have a better backup point guard, is they gave him a real contract.
They gave him a real contract, about $10 million this year. He didn't pay $10 million this year. But you got to remember, that's because of the collective bargaining agreement, the new television deal, the elevation of the salary cap, and how it's not going to count. That's damn near mid-level, for crying out loud right now, considering what it is. But I want to go to a bigger point when I look at this Golden State Warriors team. As I told you before the season began, that damn Kevin Durant ruined my season. I'm trying to tell you right now. Listen, this dude is just on another level. Now, I know Steph Curry dropped 43. I know Steph Curry is otherworldly. We know what him and Klay Thompson, making up the Splash Brothers, brings to the equation. But my God, Kevin Durant averaging 26 a game, shooting 54% from the field, shooting about 39% from three-point range. This dude is just on another level, okay? And him being on this, I mean, I'm so sick. I'm sick of him. I'm sick of Jay-Z. I'm sick of all of them, because they have taken competition. I'm just sitting back here right now. I thought I was going to have the finals to look forward to. I thought at least I was going to have the finals to look forward to. Now I'm worried about the damn finals. I'm worried about how competitive it is going to be. I'm worried about the essence of competition, for crying out loud. I might not even have it. The way Kevin Durant is flowing with this team, and the way he's fitting in, and the way they're coming together, how in God's name are they going to stop How's anybody going to stop them?
That was the question when the season started.
It's literally gotten to the point where we got last night. Everybody looking at, oh, it was a good game between them and Portland. Steph Curry didn't play last night. They beat him without Steph Curry. I mean, I'm just looking at I'm looking at the Golden State Warriors, and I'm like, damn it, this is just not fair. And that damn Max Kellerman, I was thinking about him, Molly. I was thinking about Max Kellerman because I said, he's all happy. Oh, it's a super team. Oh, we go to wait to finals, blah, 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 blah. No, this is like watching, and one competition. They are doing what they want when they want.
They're Harlem Globetrotter in the NBA.
Harlem Globetrotter in the NBA. I like that. That'll work for me for the moment. But I'm telling you right now, I look forward to competition, competitiveness.
Well, I mean,
where is it?
What do you think is going to happen?
Nobody can touch these boys. It's a damn shame.
They went to Game 7. And they blew it in the last couple possessions. And he replaced Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is a nice little player, but he was worthless in the finals. I mean, Barnes couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a handful of buckshot.
He was awful.
Well, he and CiRGlG were in a competition to see who was choking bigger under pressure. Those two guys were worthless in the finals. Terrible. Goodbye. And you replace Harrison Barnes with Kevin Durant?
Listen, I keep... There is no exaggeration. Listen, understand something, Molly. We call Kevin Durant the second best player in the world because we give deference and respect to LeBron, who's a reigning defending NBA champion, a 3-time champion, who usually gets an advantage over KD in big moments. That's the only reason. LeBron is not a better shooter. LeBron is not more accurate from the free throw line. LeBron is not a dude that you'd want the ball in his hands ahead of KD when time winds down for most people. You don't want that. Kevin Durant legitimately forces you to debate, is this the best player on the planet? And the dude is 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan who can handle the ball, pull up from three, has a mid-range game, can get to the hole, goes to the free throw line, is a career 88% free throw shooter. He plays defense again. I mean, now all of a sudden, Golden State's #1 in block shots, #1 in steals, #1 in disruptive shots, all because he's there with Draymond and Iguodala and Clay.
Try this.
And listen,
when they play five out now,
it allows them to disguise Steph Curry even more. Damn it, it ain't fair. It's not fair.
How about this?
It's just ridiculous.
When they play 5 out now, they still got a 7-footer on the floor.
Yes. Yes. It's
so you were depressed about the regular season, and now you're depressed about the finals?
He ruined the season.
But you don't really stop at the
Stephen A. But where's real competition?
Now you're depressed about the finals, too.
Yes!
No, there's no real competition.
Not depressed about the finals. I'm
worried.
Stephen A. I'm worried.
You don't really wonder who the best player in the world is.
I'm worried.
You don't really wonder.
No, I'm going to give it to LeBron.
Give it to him. You don't have to give him anything.
Kevin Durant. I'm telling you right now, though, Kevin Durant is a bad somebody, man. This is why I'm mad at him for going there. It's just not fair. My man, Max Kellerman.
He's the real deal.
You're the real deal, baby.
The Falcons are probably the more talented team, but Bill Belichick has made a career out of making the more talented team at the end of the game go, what just happened?
I look at the New England Patriots, and I'm saying to myself, they had better be ready. Atlanta's coming.
Do they have enough in their front seven? And can they do that in the Super Bowl?
They're an historically great offense. And I think that's what Belichick has to take away.
Hey, welcome back into First Take. We had a great first hour number 2 on tap. Stephen A., what's your hat on?
Well, obviously, Trump. I can't wait until we get into that discussion and listen to my man, Max Kellerman. My closing remarks, you can wait for that. I'm going to stir up a little trouble intentionally, and I don't care. That's just a couple of things on my mind. There's more, but especially that.
Stephen A., sometimes provocative. All right, gentlemen.
That's true. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes, you lucky. First takes, you got me.
The National Basketball Association, which of course is a very global league, has contacted the State Department to understand how President Donald Trump's executive order to suspend immigration from 7 countries could impact the league's players. The NBA contacted the State Department before that travel ban ruling, this according to Yahoo. Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, who lost his father to terrorist attacks, had a strong stance on the subject. Take a listen.
I would just say, that as a someone whose family member was a victim of terrorism, having lost my father, if we're trying to combat terrorism by banishing people from coming to this country. Really going against the principles of what our country's about and creating fear. It's the wrong way to go about it. If anything, we could be breeding anger and terror, and so I'm completely against what's happening.
That was Steve Kerr on Trump's travel ban. Max, what's your reaction?
First, let me say my reaction is everyone around here, and I'm sure at other media outlets, is very concerned with, if you're going to talk about this subject, getting the facts right. Let's make sure we have the facts right. And it's a little bit frustrating to talk about it because you have to be so careful with how you phrase things. And the reason that's frustrating is because the president and his press secretary and other official mouthpieces do not have to be careful about the facts and how they phrase things. They can get facts wrong. And they can get facts wrong and insist that they're right, which either means that they're lying, or maybe even more horrifyingly, that they really don't know how to vet information. But they're just plain facts that are undisputed that they dispute. So that's a frustrating position to be in. And because of that, when I see leaders, thoughtful men, leaders of men, like Greg Popovich, with a military background, and a great degree of success leading men, a thoughtful person, not mince words, but really take a leadership stance and speak in plain English his problems with what's going on. It's heartening. You feel emboldened. You feel good. And I did a final take about that last week. And Steve Kerr, the same thing, who's suffered tragedy at the hands of terrorists, his father. For him to come out and not mince words also feels good. Another leader, on the American sports scene. Good for them. It makes me happy. And so, look, what are we really talking about here? Steve Kerr's not a rabble-rouser. Not a rabble-rouser. Solid citizen, Steve Kerr. So I'll get the facts very clear here. Forget about just the ban and all that and how that'll affect sports. Let me just say that the reason that Steve Kerr and others, it seems to me, the sense of there's kind of a heightened sense of alarm here is that if the reports are true from the pro bono lawyers at the airports, when the federal courts gave an order and Customs and Border Security ignored it. Now, if those reports are true, then the question becomes, did they not fully comply with a court order because they didn't know everything or because they were intentionally ignoring the courts? And if that's the case, if that's true that they were intentionally ignoring the courts, then the question becomes, is that on order from the executive branch, from the White House? Because if that's true, we have a constitutional crisis and an attempt to undermine the Constitution and take over the government, bypass checks and balances by the executive branch, by the president. That is the most shocking thing that has happened, if those things are true, in the government in my lifetime. At least I'm 43 years old. So that's, to me, what seems to be the real kind of threat and underpinning of the kind of heightened alarm by people like Popovich and Steve Kerr, the attempt at authoritarianism. And I'm very proud, when I see the way people have come together around this issue in the sporting world and in other places, the demonstrations at the airports, it makes me proud to be an American. And I love to see the way people are coming together and rallying around this issue. Really, proud might not be the right word, but that's the word that best describes how I felt about Popovich and how I feel about Steve Kerr today.
Well, I respect the hell out of Steve Kerr. And his thoughts on such matters definitely resonate with me, considering what happened to his dad when he was 18 years of age and at University of Arizona, and his father was murdered by terrorists in Beirut. We understand that. I have profound respect for Greg Popovich. And I certainly have a problem with this ban, which to me clearly appears to be a ban against Muslims, no matter which way they slice it. Here's where we also all have to grow up and embrace the reality of the situation. We don't want to sit up there and say it with such situations like this, but money talks. And why would I bring up money? Because I'm looking at the countries on Trump's ban list here. Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Yemen. These are all countries that are on Trump's banned list, none of which he does business with. But the other countries that he does business with, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, the UAE, he does business with all of those. None of them are on the list. So now we have a
That's
situation.
essentially where the hijackers of 9/11 came from. Those are the countries of origin.
Right. And when we talk about Saudi Arabia, according to reports, including the Cato Institute, which is a conservative leaning institute, what is the number here? 2,300 and change are the terrorists from Saudi Arabia. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and the fact that they're not on your ban list, but you do business with them, and you're quoted during the campaign talking about how they buy apartments from you, they generate anywhere from $40 to $50 million from you, you love these folks. Now we get into a dicier situation as it pertains to conflict of interest on the part of our commander-in-chief. Why does that resonate? Because all of these things are things we essentially knew during the campaign. We knew about the wall, the big, beautiful wall that the Mexicans were going to pay for. We heard about that. But 29% of the Latino population voted for him. There were folks that saw and they looked at him and not immediately denouncing David Duke, not immediately, even though he eventually did it. And people pointed to that and they said, you know what, there are some sensitivities in terms of the whole housing issue in the 1970s. Oh, he's supposedly a racist. But he got 2% more of the black vote than Mitt Romney. Then we saw Hillary Clinton out there speaking in a fashion that resonated with various minority communities. But 2 million less black folks came out to vote for her than voted for Barack Obama. When Barack Obama himself was imploring people, get out there and vote. Don't sit up there and complain. Don't protest. As I told you, my boy Jeff and others have always said to me all the time, you know, you got a whole bunch of folks out there protesting, going off all the time. Conservative folks, they don't say too much. They just go to the voting polls and they vote. And so as a result, when we look at this for what it is, Max, what it comes down to is, regardless of how much folks may not like it, the 62.9 million people that voted for this man, he told them he was going to do this. And they voted for him anyway.
And that's why it's important for the media.
And that's what it is.
And that's why it's important for the media.
Right.
I'm not talking about left or right, just conscientious members of the media.
Right.
The institutions are only as strong as the people in them.
Yep.
Right? And that goes for institutions across the board in this country. During the campaign, once he was elected, I and others said, okay, clean slate time. Many people couldn't get past the divisive rhetoric of the campaign and said, no clean slate. But I and others, like you and others, said, look, okay, now we'll see what not candidate Trump does, but what the administration actually does when in office. And since he assumed the office, he has done everything that he said he was going to do. So now it's time. It wasn't just rhetoric. They were promises that he is now executing. And so for the press to sit idly by and mince words and be super careful about how you talk about it is not okay. And I use, for example, the way we talk about this. We go over meticulously making sure to get the facts right. Media outlets, organizations, other institutions, let's get the facts right. But the administration doesn't have to. And now that it's actually an administration, not a candidate, the president, now they have to be held to account. Must be brought to, I mean, that's the way it is. When there's a religious test in this country, which they are denying, but obviously Giuliani on Fox and others have said, yeah, he wanted to do this. That's not okay. It's anti-American. It is not okay, and people shouldn't sit still for it.
It's not okay. It's not okay, but the American people decide what is okay and what is not okay by who we elect to put into office. And then you're going to have people that look at his list. They're going to think about what Obama did with Syrians and Iraqis in 2011 and beyond. They're going to have questions. We don't know the answers. We're not trying to go there. But for the purposes of Steve Kerr's comment and Greg Popovich's comments, your comments, which are all valid, we have to recognize that these are alarming concerns. But I believe the biggest concern of all is the fact that he said what he was going to do. He is doing it, and 62.9 million people evidently support it or have buyer's remorse or voter's remorse. It's one or the other. Something is wrong, and that is the way that it is.
Something's really wrong if they're disobeying court orders. That is a real problem. If that's the case.
Some accuse Obama of doing the same thing.
No, you had to be very careful.
That's the problem. There's zero equivalency between what's going on now and the Obama administration.
Their eyes.
Zero.
But not in their eyes.
But that's the problem with pretending that there are alternative sets of facts. There is one set of facts, and there is no equivalence.
Not to the people.
We have to take a break. I wish we had more time, guys. Earlier this month, the San Francisco 49ers fired GM Trent Baalke, and over the weekend they replaced him with a Hall of Fame candidate, John Lynch. He has no front office experience, but is being given a 6-year contract, according to our Adam Schefter. Lynch reached out to their presumed future head coach, Kyle Shanahan, before reaching out to the 49ers about his interest in the GM job. Lynch is a former defensive back for the Bucs and Broncos and was a longtime NFL analyst for Fox. And look who's here, Jeff Saturday. It's been a minute.
It's
good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you back with us. Stephen A., I want to start with you here. Do you have a problem with the 49ers hiring Lynch?
I have a big problem with it. And for the purposes of Lynch's family and him who's watching, he does an outstanding job at Fox. He was an outstanding football player. I don't know him personally. I'm not questioning anything about this man. My comments have absolutely nothing to do with Lynch himself. My issue is about the process. Jeff, Max, you know me. I'm all about the process of fairness. No executive experience whatsoever. No, not a member of a scout team, not a member of a player personnel department, not a GM, nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing off the field other than being an analyst for football. And you get not only the general manager's job, but a 6-year deal? 6 years? 6 years. And on top of it all, how did you get the job? Because you got a relationship with Kyle Shanahan because you used to play with his father. And you know him. And as a result, you picked up the phone and you asked him, let's rap, let's talk. And then after that, you spent a couple of nights at Ned York's house. Okay? And then after that, you land a 6-year deal. And I say this, and I know this makes folks uncomfortable, but it's first take, so I'm going to put it right there. I don't know of any black man in history that has gotten a GM job in NFL history under such circumstances. That resonates with me. Now, they interviewed 2 African-American candidates, and I made sure that I put this down on my note charts because Louis Riddick, our very own Louis Riddick, was one of them, of course. Mm-hmm. Of course, you had Jimmy Ray. They interviewed him. George Patton, that's right, George Patton, Elliot Wolf, a couple of other guys. They interviewed about 6 different candidates according to numerous sources that I have. 2 of those guys, Jimmy Ray and Louis Riddick, were obviously individuals that they picked up. So you went through the process per se. But I'm like, come on. It's about fairness. Give me a qualified candidate. I got nothing to say. And again, I wish Lynch well. Seems like a really good guy. Excellent analyst. Very knowledgeable about the sport. But when you look at a hire like this, unfortunately, it puts guys like yourselves and others in uncomfortable positions to some degree, maybe because a guy like me is standing up here and pointing out the inequity. The man has no experience. And because of his friendship with Kyle Shanahan, he gets a 6-year deal in the National Football League. Come on, y'all.
It doesn't put me in an awkward position at all. I mean, right. I appreciate that point of view. I would say it's very interesting to me that a team that has spiraled to the bottom of the league, partly because they ran a great coach out of town. Right, they had a great coach. There's a good argument to make that over a 3-year span, the San Francisco 49ers were the best team in football in spite of never winning a Super Bowl. Right. Like the way the Buffalo Bills were when they went to 4 straight. And over that span, all together, they were the best team in football when I was a kid. The San Francisco 49ers, 3 years, they made it to the Super Bowl. They were always in the NFC Championship game. They were likely, over that entire time, the best team in football with a great coach. They ran the coach out of town. So they spiraled to the bottom of the league of their own doing. And once you're there, Jeff, you go out and hire a guy with 0 experience. You're entitled to do that. And maybe you strike gold, right?
Right.
But, boy, you better. And if, as Stephen A. says, because you gave him a 6-year deal, it's not working out, the last thing Niners fans are ever going to want to hear is, well, you know, he has a 6-year contract. Like, if by year 2 it's a disaster, you have to eat the last 4 years on that deal. Niners fans are not going to want to hear it.
Right. Well, let me say this. The 6-year deal, I think, had more to do with his job at Fox than it did the longevity of what the expectations are. I think he was in a very good job. He was doing a very good job at it. So that 6-year deal, it's to cover that, because he's not just going to come for nothing, right? I mean, you understand the business side of it.
Yes, I do.
I also think it's a dumpster fire there anyway. So, 2 coaches, 2 years, you ran out a great football coach. All the traditional ways of doing it have failed them. And it has failed terribly the last couple of years. And so I think as they looked at it, they thought, how can we put this thing back on the rails? And to your point with the relationship he has with Shanahan, and as inequitable as it may seem, and probably is, football is a relationship business. You know it. I know it. There are a lot of guys who hire their friends when they get jobs.
Business.
Yeah, no, you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. So that's the way it always is. Is it fair? It's probably not fair.
That's why the Rooney Rule is so important, because it is a relationship business.
And Louis Riddick and Jimmy, both guys, very talented, very qualified guys. But I think they went outside the box here, and I think they thought if they can get 2 guys who are like-minded. John Lynch is going to walk in here. I do know him personally. I played against him. Fierce competitor. I know him. I've been at Pro Bowls with him. I know him personally as well. This guy is a grinder. He is a true grinder by every definition of the word. And I'm going to tell you, he will blow you away when you sit down. He's got no ego. He'll bring in anybody that he thinks can help this team win and be successful. The one thing I would say I appreciate about that is he doesn't have all the relationships in the front office that other people are coming to that business with. Because, again, it is a relationship business. So if you've worked with a guy, you may have promised him, hey, man, when I get it, I'm taking you. When you get it, you're taking me. He's got no ties like that. That guy's going to come in. He's been working in an analyst chair. He doesn't have those things. So he can bring people in that he knows will give him a good shot. And having that relationship with Shanahan, if that's the guy,
Let's give him credit that he knows football, though.
He definitely knows football. But here's the deal. I've been around the best, right? Bill Polian, Hall of Famer, I've been around the best. What made him the best was that he sought his coach's preference, and he gave them the ingredients that they felt they would win with it. Whether it was Marv Levy, Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell, you name it, he gave his guys that. Not every GM does that. And John Lynch, I feel personally, will do that. That's why that relationship is so important.
You're right. And similar to Steve Kerr. There's nothing. I mean, when I didn't like the fact that Mark Jackson got booted out of
exactly.
You can't question Steve Kerr.
Right.
I mean, Steve Kerr was a former champion. He was a former general manager in Phoenix. He had aspirations to coach. I had an issue with the fact that he got a 5-year deal for double the amount of money they paid Mark Jackson when Mark Jackson was the coach. Because, again, we're talking about the issue of fairness, even though the Golden State Warriors first-class organization. But I'm bringing up and I'm addressing your point about Lynch to say this. I want the Lynch family to know.
It's not personal. No,
I'm not talking about him. No. I'm saying when you are in a league that has a Rooney Rule, that is associated with the Fritz Pollard Alliance, that prides itself on being associated with a fair and equitable process, and then something like this happens, it debunks all of that. Because it shows, that's not, that's what I'm saying is not right.
But isn't it okay that, so, I mean, there will be times,
and it didn't seem like you were coming in
there will be times where, like, a white guy doesn't have experience and gets the job, right? And, like, here's one of those instances. He's inexperienced and he got the job. And sometimes that will happen, even if the optics aren't great.
And all I'm asking is, let me see a black man with no experience getting the same opportunity, and I'm good. I got nothing to say.
Great point.
If Louis Riddick would have been selected, we'd have been happy about it.
He's got front office experience, though.
Yeah, he does.
You mentioned Bill Polian. We want to get into your former organization right now, and they have a change at GM, the Colts. So Indianapolis has hired Chris Ballard, who had previously been the Chiefs' director of football operations, according to KMBC, Kansas City's. Ballard wanted to move on from head coach Chuck Pagano, even though he was given a 4-year extension last year. Under Pagano, the team hasn't been able to do much for their prize quarterback Andrew Luck since drafting him #1 overall in 2012. Luck has committed the 3rd most turnovers in the league since being drafted. Max, we know what a special talent Andrew Luck is. Are the Colts ruining his career?
Yes. Yes, they are. I don't know. That's the best way to answer that question. Yes. You know, Andrew Luck, it's like, can he be the next Peyton Manning? and they're turning him into the next Archie Manning.
Right.
It's not fair to Andrew Luck, who I really think, look, Aaron Rodgers is the best player in football, and I don't think it's close. I really don't think it's close. Apologies to Tom Brady and his fans. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is on a different level. I think Andrew Luck, and then Tom Brady, because he's that experienced and still that great, Andrew Luck has a chance to replace those guys at the top of the sport. He has everything you want from a quarterback, even the fact that he's a little turnover prone, a little interception, to me says, yeah, but what's the circumstances? His team is not often winning. He's got to take some chances. I mean, I'd rather see a guy try to win than worry about his stats anyway. So he's that. No offensive line, precious few resources devoted to the offensive line. The defense ain't great. And they can't, and they have an aging running back who's solid, but not an all-pro level guy.
He's never had a running back. He's never had an O-line.
Right. So you're asking him to do it all by himself, and he's so great that in his first 3 seasons, he won 11 games each time and even got to an AFC championship game. But he can't do it all by himself. They're frittering away the real meat of this guy's prime right now, and they better get it together.
Here's the issue. Andrew Luck is 5 years in the league. He's been sacked 156 times. Sacked 41 times his first year in the league, sacked 41 times this past season. 32 times another season, 27 times another season.
And he missed time.
The only reason he was sacked 15 times last year is because he only played 7 games. They never got him any help. Here's what makes it worse. You got Chris Ballard, your new general manager. According to the reports, if the reports are true, I do not know, but if the reports are true, he don't really want Pagano. To get the job, he had to deal with Pagano for this upcoming season. See, that's another way you mess with the quarterback. Because again, you walk in there and it's clear that the GM, that would not be his guy, Pagano. But he has to deal with it because Irsay gave him and Grigson 4-year extensions, okay? And now you let Grigson go, so you don't want to pay both of them. See, these are the kind of things you don't mess around with when you have a franchise caliber quarterback. That's what Irsay did. That's why he's messing with Andrew Luck's career. And if I'm Andrew Luck, if these guys don't get it together this year, I might want out of there.
Yeah,
I get that.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Okay, here's the thing. Football is not in a vacuum, so the Grigson-Pagano issue that's now the Ballard-Pagano issue is not going away. I will say there have been situations like this where GMs have come in and been forced with a coach, and they ended up staying together, and things have prospered, and they've been successful. So there's still potential there. What I like about Ballard and how I think they are potentially saving his career at this point with bringing Chris Ballard in, he gets it, right? He was in Chicago when they built a team, being in Kansas City. He understands an offensive line and protecting your most valuable asset, which is Andrew Luck, is going to be on the forefront. He also understands what he has in the defense and what has to be fixed as well. That's probably his specialty, is on the defensive side of the ball. But as you're looking offensively, this is going to be something that he really can control because Pagano is a defensive-minded guy. Offensively, their strategy has to change. These 5- and 7-step drops, this nonsense has got an end. Stephen A. brought up how many times he's been sacked. Think about how many times he's been hit. I mean, we got organs being shifted around inside our body. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the game of football is no longer can you play it dropping your quarterback 7 steps. Okay, I understand Bruce, BA did it with Andrew Luck, Bruce Arians, his first year with him. But he was a young guy, and he could take some shots. You don't last long taking those shots, and he has taken way too many. They are going to have to condense this offense, understanding how important 3-step drops are. Think about the Kansas City way right now. Run the football. Alex Smith is getting that thing off when that back foot hits 3. Bam, ball gone. Get a good tight end, good relationship. He's got Dwayne Allen there, but foster and breed that thing. That is your go-to guy. Get the ball to the backs out of the backfield. Make all these things happen, but Ballard understands that. That will potentially fix the offensive issues. Because right now, you talk about his turnover issues are directly related to self-preservation. I'm telling you right now, if I'm back there, I'm chucking that thing up too, man. I ain't trying to get smoked. I mean, how many times I got to get hit to go 8-8? He gets it. He knows that defense ain't going to stand up, right? Like, be honest about who you are. That defense ain't getting anybody off the field either, so why am I going to take all these shots? So I think the whole presence of Ballard being there is going to be very beneficial.
Promising, then.
Absolutely.
And optimistic from your
Absolutely. From
Knock
the Colts
wood,
perspective.
because this guy deserves better.
No question.
Absolutely.
Andrew Luck.
Absolutely.
So appreciate having your perspective, and good to see you.
Great
we will
time.
see
Thanks
you soon.
again.
Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Geico's been around for more than 75 years, back when they were using Morse code. Sorry, that's just my sense of humor. What's more, with Geico you get 24/7 access to licensed agents on the app, online, or over the phone, so you can talk to them at night or in the morning. So forevermore, just know that no other auto insurer has more than Geico. More power to you. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
So here's the deal. Last week, the Cavaliers rejected a trade that would send Kevin Love to the Knicks and Carmelo Anthony to the land. Last night, that decision became a little more interesting as Love missed the second half of the Cavaliers' win over the Thunder with back spasms. Meanwhile, Melo had an impressive game last night, scoring 45 points in a 4-overtime loss to the Hawks. He also fouled out and did not play in the final overtime. Stephen A., point blank, did the Cavs make a mistake not trading for him?
I believe they did, and I said that the other day because I think that Melo is better than Kevin Love with LeBron James. I mean, obviously, you have a situation where Kevin Love is 20-10, and there's no reason to sniff on him. He can play, and I like him a lot. But when I think about Melo being a prolific scorer that he is, being an individual capable of creating his own shot and scoring under duress as well, mid-range, three-point, free throw line, et cetera, I think about when things potentially could break down for Cleveland, who can ultimately get a shot for you and make a shot under such duress. I think he's better equipped than Kevin Love to do so. But also, more importantly, Max, if you remember, last week, one of the things I pointed to, and I said this because I had been hearing this, is that Kevin Love, I brought up his health. Everybody looked at his numbers. And what did I say last week? I said, look, guys are saying he's breaking down. He looks a bit iffy out
Mentioned
here.
his back, I believe.
I mentioned his back. I mentioned his back. I mentioned his knees. I mentioned his hips. What happens yesterday? Back spasms. And so these are the kind of things, even though he's 5 years younger than Melo, he's breaking down in a more conspicuous fashion in some people's eyes than Melo. And his game is more predicated on, if it's not the spot-up shot, he has to bang and get physical. Melo doesn't have to do that because of the offensive arsenal that he has. I think Cleveland should have seen that since they have him every day and should have pounced on the opportunity to get Melo, especially since the Knicks were more than willing to take Love. I think it will prove to be a mistake.
Ready for this? I disagree. I say you're wrong, even if Kevin Love's back means he doesn't play another game this season. I still think you're wrong, and this is why.
Okay.
One, with the playoffs approaching in the not-too-distant future, you don't trade a piece of your championship nucleus to integrate a high-usage player who's an ISO scorer when really your offense is predicated on penetration and three-point shooting. So that would be a mistake in the first place. But in the second place, even if Kevin Love got hurt, and he's good to know, well, see, you could have had Carmelo Anthony. Here's the kicker, Stephen A. Phil Jackson is doing such a bad job as the president of basketball operations for the Knicks. He is so intent on undermining Carmelo and humiliating him on the way out of town that it seems to me that Phil doesn't care if the Knicks even get worse because they get less back in a trade for Carmelo. His primary concern seems to be his ego and embarrassing Carmelo even as it depresses Carmelo's trade value. Therefore, you don't need to give up Kevin Love to get back Carmelo Anthony. The Cavs were right not to trade him because, as you can see from the Clippers' proposed deal, Phil Jackson isn't even requiring a star back. They're looking for a third team to get into that trade, a partner, so we can just get pieces. Why give up Kevin Love?
Here's why you're wrong. Kyrie, LeBron, Kevin Love, JR, Tristan Thompson. Those are the guys making money for you on the Cavaliers. Because of the $22 million Melo's making, you're going to have to give up those dudes along with Iman Shumpert. Phil Jackson would never take back JR. He would never take back Iman Shumpert, those two. So as a result, that strips you of four. You got Tristan Thompson. You don't need him. You might could use him along with Kristaps.
He's a good player. Yep.
But he's a damn good player, what have you. But at the same time, that's a guy that's represented by the same dude that represents LeBron James or what have you. That's not going to happen. So Love is literally the only tradable commodity that you have because nobody else would entertain it. So when you look at it from that perspective, that's that point. Then it's the basketball point. I think you look at Cleveland as a finished product. This is who they are. I'm saying to you, that's who they have to be at their best because of the personnel that they have. If they were to acquire Carmelo Anthony. Don't you tell me that LeBron James can't make that adjustment. In other words, instead of just being somebody and you kicking it out to a spot up three where you get 55% of your assists. Oh no, you can make the necessary adjustments if you've got Kyrie on one side, Melo on the other, and you're LeBron James. And that's the key I think you got to remember.
Look, Carmelo is an offensive weapon. Particularly, I see the thing about LeBron, and the reason he is so much better than everyone else, I don't think Kevin Durant is close to him. I made the mistake of thinking maybe Steph had surpassed him, not because he was actually better, but because the way the game is played today, the last couple of years, Steph, especially last year, I don't think he's close, and I'll tell you why. LeBron James makes any unit function at optimal efficiency. So even if it means he's playing on the ball and Kyrie's playing off ball and both of their stats are depressed, he's making any team he's on function as well as it possibly can. He would do that for Carmelo Anthony too, but is it enough time in a matter of half a season to get them ready to win a chip?
My last retort to what you're saying is that you're right about LeBron in terms of what he would bring out of everybody else, but you're ignoring the fact that Kevin Durant, what everyone else does, he could do himself. So it's one of those situations where, yeah, LeBron might make those other people more efficient, but Kevin Durant is that efficient by himself. That's what makes
Take Durant. I got LeBron.
All right.
Antonio Romero Romo's career in Dallas seems to be over as the Cowboys had a good season, very good season, with rookie quarterback Dak Prescott. Rumors of him being traded to the Denver Broncos have been swirling over the past few weeks. Now, according to KUSA's Mike Kliss, Denver is only interested in adding Romo if he is a free agent. This means the Cowboys would have to release him, allowing the Broncos to negotiate a better contract with him. Who should have the higher level of urgency here, Romo or John Elway?
Well, I mean, as I told you weeks ago, early in the season, Romo would have virtually no trade value. Everyone sat here and told me how much trade value Romo is going to have. It's virtually none. For example, Elway ain't going to give up anything for him. Not because he's not excellent. Romo, when he's on the field, is excellent. But he's, done in terms of his health. He can't stay on the field for a whole season. Very unlikely. His back keeps going out. So there's more urgency for Romo, obviously, because the clock is ticking. And all the teams around the league, even the suckers, have to know whatever you give up for Romo, you can't really plan your season around him. You have to cross your fingers and hope he's healthy. John Elway's the king in Denver. You don't have to worry about anything. If it's not Romo, maybe Phillip Rivers will be available or someone better. And even if not, another quarterback will present themselves. He doesn't need Romo. Romo needs him.
Well, I agree with you there, but I think it's important to ask this particular question. What level of urgency do you give to an executive who has the quality of a team that Elway has in terms of how much life they have left? You can't ignore that. Whether it's to keep the lead with Chris Harris and Von Miller and the crew, the reality is that it's very, very rare in the day that an executive in the NFL has the plethora of talent that he has on one side of the ball that's so dominant with Super Bowl credentials. And then you've got guys on the offensive side of the ball, and then Emmanuel Sanders, and then Demaryius Thomas. Okay, with Chris Anderson coming out of the backfield, assuming that he's healthy enough to play. Do you sit up there and just go along and feel all comfortable because Trevor Siemian will be entering his second year, and so with Paxton Lynch, third year for Trevor Siemian, even though this is his first year he played. You see what I'm saying? Do you sit up there and you lay in the cut, chill out, be comfortable, or do you recognize the level of urgency that you're supposed to have because of the talent that you've assembled and saying, okay, I need this piece. Tony Romo can be my modern day or present day Peyton Manning. 5 years later, this is what I tell him we need. All we need you to do is this. Can you handle that? Because this is what we're after. So the level of urgency definitely Max is right in terms of Tony Romo getting that ring, assuming that's what you want. But let's not ignore the level of culpability John Elway has. You put the other pieces together. You went from the Super Bowl to not making.
You got to find a quarterback.
You got to find a quarterback.
You got to find a quarterback.
All right, very important news, Stephen A. I don't know if you know, tomorrow on First Take, Darren Woodson, who has been MIA since the Cowboys were eliminated from the playoffs, he will be in the house.
Wow, we traveling, right?
Yeah. No, we're going to talk to him.
We'll talk to him. We'll talk to him.
We have plenty to get into him and plenty that we want to discuss with Darren Woodson because we had a feeling that this was going to happen.
Yeah, we knew. Come on. Cowboys ain't showing up after they lose.
Well, I hope he has some things to say to you guys because I think they have a lot to be optimistic about. And we can also get his thoughts, of course, on this Tony Romo situation.
You are so disrespectful.
He is going to fall off a cliff.
Shut the hell up.
That's not even close to my best.
They're wrong. And I don't give a damn that they agree with me or not. Insubordination is not a good thing. Usually it's counterproductive. In most instances, it can get you fired. And for the purposes of sports, it can facilitate you being labeled a prima donna, a locker room cancer, no doubt compromising one's marketability, which we know is a huge deal in today's climate of professional sports. Yet having said all of that, I'd still advise Carmelo Anthony to engage in just that, insubordination, solely for when it comes to Phil Jackson. This is what you do when you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, and tempted to run amok, all for the purposes of you sabotaging yourself so the boss can have an easy out for his own ineptitude. In other words, it's what you do when you work for Phil Jackson, a man who clearly hasn't been interested in working since he arrived in New York. If blessings came raining down upon all New Yorkers and Jackson was to skip town today, he'd depart with an 80-148 record since he arrived. Yet the worst part of it all is that his record isn't the worst part of him. Leaks to media members, insinuations that he was forced to give Melo $122 million, that it was something he didn't really want to do, issues involving the triangle, how players either don't want to run it or don't know how to run it, all emanating from the stands, mind you. Now, not with Phil Jackson actually on the sidelines, doing what he did when he lucked up and captured 11 titles, riding the coattails of MJ, Pip, and Shaq, and Kobe, and then Kobe again. I know he could coach, but this is his executive I'm talking about here. Oh, did I forget to mention signing Joakim Noah to 4 years and $73 million, along with an additional $50 million to Courtney Lee at the expense of acquiring Dwayne Wade? Or how about the fact that this championship coach failed to put one single player with championship credentials inside the Knicks locker room? Ever think about that? Yeah, here we are looking at Melo, there to play every night, answer questions every night, while Phil lurks in the shadows, prepping himself for months just to answer 5 minutes of questions. If you're Melo and had to deal with all of this, what would you do? Here's a suggestion, just a suggestion. Instead of saying, quote, "I'm just here so I don't get fined," how about this one? Melo should say, "Ask Phil to everything." That's kind of insubordinate, but who cares?
Hey, Stephen A. bringing it like always. If you want to see more of our final takes, head over to our Facebook and Twitter pages. Leave your comments and join the conversation.
Yeah, I'm with
there.
Stephen A. Stephen A., I'm with you on this. It seems as though I'm anti-Melo at times because I say he's overrated, which I believe he is. But he is an excellent player. He has given his heart and soul to the city and the team. He works hard. He answers questions every day, just as you said. He's trying his best, at least on offense, and he deserves much better than this. That Phil Jackson would try to undermine Carmelo to the point where he'd also undermine the fortunes of the team just to humiliate Carmelo on the way out the door and depress his trade value. It's not fair to Carmelo Anthony, who's a hard worker, who has done everything asked of him by the city and the team, and Phil cannot say the same.
Especially when you're not even there to answer questions 95% of the time. Mm-hmm. What exactly does Phil Jackson do? I mean, we know he's the president, but what does he do?
What's your priority?
Because he doesn't seem to do anything.
Arguably the greatest coach ever. He's in the argument, but as an executive, he's been a failure.
I was not talking about the coach at all. This was strictly about the executive that needs to get the hell out of New York as soon as he possibly can and just go retire someplace.
You have your radio show, and then you will be headed to Houston. We will see you there. Max, you'll be in New York tomorrow. Then we'll also see you in Houston on Wednesday. We're looking forward to it. So many guests joining us. It's going to be a great week. And we love having the fans. That's the best part when we're on the road. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.
It's an ACC showdown on Big Monday. Duke travels to South Bend to face Notre Dame. Coverage begins Monday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio. Are you kidding? Presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts.